welcome back to my channel. It's Keesh here, and I'm so excited to be talking to you guys again. I know you're probably thinking, why are you in your bed? Well, I thought, you know what, let's just get comfy, get cozy, because this is a bit of a story time. I was going to actually film something else today, but I thought, you know what, when God tells you we're gonna switch it up, you listen. So I thought today would be a good day to just go right ahead and jump into my health story. I told you guys on my intro video that, and I'll still link it down below. You can check out my TikTok if you want to see a bit of a shortened version of this story. But this is just going to be me kind of discussing it for this platform in the hopes that it reaches an even larger audience than it did on TikTok. We'll just see what happens. So, without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So, on May 3rd, I would love to say it was a normal day, but it wasn't. I woke up, and this was as soon as I woke up, I noticed that I was numb from my waist down to my thighs. And my hands were tingling, almost as if when you fall asleep on your arm and you wake up and you're like, hey, my arm's asleep. I kind of was like, my hands feel asleep, so let me just kind of shake them around and see if I can get the blood flowing back in them. Well, did that, and it just didn't stop. And this numb feeling, numb sensation, along with the tingling, went on all day. Fast forward to the next day. Still there, numb from the waist to my thighs, except it had traveled down my legs and into my feet this time. Hands were still just tingling, and like I said, all these other places couldn't hardly feel anything. And for me, I was thinking I recently started a new job 2 months prior. I went from a job where I was on my feet to a job where I was just sitting. So I just thought, I don't know, maybe I've sat wrong, or I don't know. I just kind of blamed it on the job change. Well, decided, hey, I'm just going to go to urgent care and we'll just see what one of those doctors have to say about it. She did not run any tests on me. She just kind of went based off of what I had to say. And she said, look, sounds like your spine's probably a little inflamed. I'm going to prescribe you some anti-inflammatories. And then I would recommend you just getting a cushion and see if maybe you can invest in one of those desks that you can raise up and you can stand up, because you probably need to be standing, which was true, because I went straight to sitting 8.5 hours a day. So went on into the next day, started taking this medication. Same thing. The numbness was there. The tingling in the hands was there. I just thought, well, it's going to take a day or two for these antibiotics to kick in. You can't expect it overnight. Well, Monday night into Tuesday morning, I was sleeping good. I didn't lose any sleep, but I just jumped up out of bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and my heart was like pounding out of my chest. I think because I was just nervous, because I could not feel hardly anything from the waist down. My hands were actually starting to hurt a bit, because at this point they had been tingling for 3 to 4, going on 4 days. So they were actually starting to hurt. And I got nervous and thought, maybe I have a blood clot. So I went to the emergency room. I called my mom to take me, and we went. And I will say this part kind of hurts me because this is where it started to where I felt like I wasn't being heard. I explained everything. And of course, when you go to the emergency room, they're going to draw blood. They're going to take a urine sample. They did that. And they said, hey, you have a bladder infection. And I thought, okay. I would never thought that. They said, but we're going to do a CT scan, make sure you haven't had a stroke. And I thought, okay, well, that makes me feel a little bit better. Did a CT scan. It comes back normal. They don't see anything. And so I just asked, what am I to do? And the reason I felt that I wasn't heard was because they just said, hey, look, only thing we can do is tell you, follow up with your doctor. We're just going to prescribe you some bladder pills. I'm like, okay. So I still have this numbing, tingling problem. I need to take one more day off of work. Hopefully, once again, these anti-inflammatories will do something. 3 days had passed. And I went back to work because I had no more time off. I've literally been at this job for 2 months. So I only had really 2 days of time. Back to work. All of a sudden, I can't sit down. I have pain in my tailbone area. Not really any pain in my lower back, but it was in the tailbone. Every time I sat down, it just felt like my tailbone had came out of place. Hands were hurting. I was struggling to open my water bottle. Just uncomfortable. I made it to lunchtime, and I told my supervisor, look, I don't think I can sit here any longer. I've got to go home. She says, fine, that's okay. Because I could not sit flat down on my behind, I called my grandmother and I said, hey, can you come pick me up? She said, sure. I said, just take me home. I've got some anti-inflammatory. I'll just take those and maybe I just need some rest. She said, no, I think you need to go back to the emergency room. So I said, okay. So this is round 2 of the emergency room. This time, I'm like, look, if I don't get an MRI done, then we're going to have to find somewhere else to go because I think I need an MRI. They said, okay, we'll do an MRI because there's probably is something going on with your spine. They do the MRI and they find that I have a herniated disc, L5. So it kind of made sense why the tailbone area was giving me a problem. However, looking back at that time, I did not have much knowledge about herniated discs and your spine. I actually had the nurse to check me for hemorrhoids because I had no idea what was going on. I knew something was going on, but she checked. She said, look, there's no sign of that. But I still, in the moment, didn't think a herniated disc would cause me not to be able to sit. Well, that's what it was. So I asked, hey, can I get some sort of medication to help with the pain? The nurse just says, look, the only thing I can recommend to you is going to see a chiropractor. So once again, I'm not heard, I'm not listened to. In a way, I was kind of like, I guess I'll just have to take the advice because these are medical professionals. They know what they're talking about. So I said, okay, I'll do whatever I can to get to my primary care doctor. Maybe she can help. I make an appointment with her. And this appointment is about 3 days later. I get up to go to this early morning appointment and I get a call that she has called out for the day. They say, look, if you really need to see somebody, come back to urgent care. You can see one of those doctors. I said, fine, that's fine. So I did that. I went to see another doctor At this point, I totally missed the part. There was a medication that was prescribed to me, and it was a muscle relaxer. With muscle relaxers, you are not allowed to drive. And it makes sense of why. Because they make you very dizzy, and obviously they relax your muscles, all of them. And just imagine being on a ride that spins. It's not going fast, but even when you're sitting still, this ride is spinning. So, no driving at this point. No really doing anything but just trying to relax. And relaxing was nearly impossible when you're having to take this medication 3 times a day. So I make it to urgent care. And I get there, and I'm there maybe 10 minutes just waiting. I get super dizzy. And I'm like, I can't stand up straight. Like, I can't see. So they're like, hey, we'll bring you a wheelchair. That's fine. So I get rolled back here, and I see a doctor that was super nice. And she tells me, look, I'm going to put you on a different type of anti-inflammatory medication. I don't think that one's a good one for you to be on. Make sure you're using an ice pack, not using heat. Well, I was using heat, didn't know. Heat makes it worse. I'm going to set you up with an orthopedic doctor. I said, okay. A couple days pass. I go see this orthopedic doctor. And, of course, by the time I get to her, there's nothing we can do that day. I had to explain everything. And she says, well, I'll just set you up for physical therapy. That'll help. If you can't sit down and stuff like that, that'll help you. I said, okay. I go to physical therapy the next week. At this point, this is week 3 of hands being not completely numb, but still tingling. The numbness has kind of subsided in my feet and legs, which to me, I felt like, okay, it's good. The room's still spinning, but at least my feet and legs are feeling better. But waist to thighs was still numb. But my hands at this point felt like somebody was squeezing the life out of them. They were in severe pain. I was at the point then, even holding my phone, everything was just starting to become impossible. I get to therapy, and this is where God sent me an angel named Kyle. Kyle, if you're watching this, I have to include you. He sent me an angel. I explained to him everything. He looks confused by everything that I'm telling him. And he tells me, look, if you were my daughter, I would send you to a different hospital. I would take you to a different emergency room. He said, because you have a neurological problem going on. And you need help now. And I said, okay. I believed him. I trusted him. I thought, Lord, because at this point, I'm like, if nobody can help me, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I took his word. I took his advice. And me and my mom head to a different hospital. When I walked in, I just felt like these people are going to help me. It's like that's what I heard. I felt peace, even though I was in pain. So 12 long hours in this emergency room. No room, just in a bed in front of the nurse's station. And I will say this was a great hospital because they checked on me every 30 minutes. Within the first 5 minutes that I was there, they went ahead and started by IV. They went ahead, took another urine sample, took my blood pressure, and this is when I really knew something was wrong, because as my blood pressure is being taken, my hand starts to turn blue because the blood flow was being cut off, and my hands were so numb. They were completely blue. So I try not to panic, but I just said to the nurse, like, hey, my hand's turning blue. I think it's all. She takes it off. I was terrified. To watch your hand just turn blue, I never had that happen before. And I don't know if any of you ever experienced any area of your body turning blue. That is very scary. So, regardless, I still had peace, but I was scared. So, they take blood, and they say, look, everything looks normal. They do a urine sample. They say, hey, you have a bladder infection. So I said, okay, this bladder infection's still here. Sure. They look at the MRI that was done. This is when I found out it was only on my lower spine, not my entire spine. They said, look, we need to do your entire spine. We see this herniated disc. It's there, but it's not sitting on your nerves, so it can't cause you any numbness. They did a nutrition test. Normal, completely normal. Nothing was off with any of those tests. They come over, a doctor comes over, he says, hey, I'm pretty sure this won't happen, but I just have to ask, if anything happens to you, do you want to be resuscitated? Oh, that was like a gut punch. And I said, yes, sir. Please help me. So I get this MRI done, and at this point I'm admitted, and they find a lesion. They can't figure out how I got this lesion because it's internal. They asked me if I had any injuries, and I said none that I know of. I did have some back pain in January. That lasted for about 3 days, and I put a heating pad on, and it went away. So, but other than that, I don't think I have anything. I don't have any injuries that I know of. I'm not a person that really falls. So, they said, okay, well, it's kind of on your spinal cord, like your neck. We're gonna go ahead and do a MRI on your brain, just to make sure that you don't have anything else going on. And I said, okay, that's fine. And they said, look, the one on your neck looks inflamed. So what we're going to do is a spinal tap. We're going to test the fluid in your spine, because it's going to be the same fluid that's near the lesion, around it. And that will tell us if there is an issue. If you have possibly some type of infection. And I said, okay. I'm a little terrified again because the MRI for my spine was pretty easy. It came with headphones and some music. It did last 2 hours, but I thought, okay, now my brain, this is going to be interesting. And a spinal tap, a big long needle in my back, sure. I get the spinal tap done first because you can't have an MRI done back to back if you have contrast put in your first MRI, which I did. So we get the spinal tap, and we get the results. Everything looks great. They said everything looks normal. And I'm feeling pretty optimistic because I'm thinking, okay, so we just have this lesion going on the neck. But what about this brain stuff? Get the brain MRI done. And while I'm in there, I started talking to God because I was terrified. But I started talking to God and I said, Lord, if it's your will that I don't have a mass in my brain, please, I'll accept whatever you give me. But just please, Lord, don't let there be a mass in my brain.